Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Rarsu Amaribi. On this channel, I film about graduate school in the United States, sustainability education, and lifestyle. On today's video, I'll be bringing to you the most updated information, tips, and tricks for getting into a fully funded PhD program in the United States. So on this channel, I already have a playlist named PhD Admission into the United States, where you see like details about the different application process. So after watching this video, you can definitely go through that playlist. It will be linked up here and down in the description box. In today's video, I'm not alone. I have my friend with me, Victor. He's also a PhD student, and he also helps PhD applicants and graduate school applicants with their application process. So we're just going to be discussing about like the most updated information this year for all of you guys that are applying for PhD programs. Hello, Victor.
Hello, Rosa.
So can you just start off by introducing yourself to the audience?
All right. Thank you for bringing me on. My name is Victor Adegboye. I'm a PhD student at Tufts University in Boston, Massachusetts, in the US. I'm in the mechanical engineering department. My research currently explores machine fault detection, and we're trying to see how to make water pumps, hand pumps more reliable. I run a consultancy firm called VCADE Consult. You can find more about me on the website, where I help people who are interested in applying to schools. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
So guys, all of his details will be down in the description box, so you can get to his website and contact him through all the links below. So let's just start off. Can we let them know the timeline? I know people already applying, already know, but this video is also for people that have not started and want to know about the entire process. So can we tell them the timeline for application into PhD programs in the United States?
So one thing we have to take note of before delving into the timeline is the fact that we need time to write the GRE and the TOEFL. So you can estimate 3 months for the preparation, and then you take note of the fact that many schools have deadlines, December 1 and December 15. December 15 seems to be the most popular deadlines for very competitive schools. A few extremely competitive schools have a December 1 deadline, and I've actually seen a school with a November 21 deadline. So it depends on each school. So we have deadlines in December 1, December 15, December 30, January 1, January 15, and some schools have like February 1 and February 15 deadlines. Once you get past February, things become a bit shaky. It's extremely important for you to apply on time. And when you have a deadline, it means all your application packets, the application you filled online, your letters of recommendations, your transcript and all the other uploads, your GRE scores, all those things have to be in the school by the deadline. Some schools may have a soft deadline in the sense that they allow you to submit the online application, and they give about 1 or 2 weeks for the other parcels to come. But many schools don't have that. If your complete application doesn't come in by that deadline, they have the right to dismiss your application. So application deadlines, and then you can begin to expect responses from April 15. So many schools form the consortium, and they agree to send out application results or admission results by April 15. So from April 15 till around May, June, you can get admission decisions, and then from around, as soon as you get your admission decision, if you're accepted by a school, you begin to apply for your visa. That takes a few months. Right now in Nigeria, I'm talking specifically about Nigeria right now. I know this video is watched by people all over the world, but I know that in some countries the queue or the queue for the visa is long, and it's important that you apply for your visa as soon as you get an admission decision. It's possible to get an expedited service or apply for emergency dates, but don't bank on those things. So that's like the timeline. And then, of course, by August first, second, or third week of August. You travel down to the US. You cannot enter until 30 days before the start of your program. You come in and then you settle down, and most schools resume for the semester around the second week of August, second, third week. My school TOEFL usually resumes during the first week of September, but it's quite unusual for schools to have that date or that time. So that's the timeline I can think of roughly in my head, and I'm happy to talk more about this.
This specifically is for fall of each year. Like we just talked about the timeline for fall. I know that most PhD programs admit in fall, but are there PhD programs that admit in spring? I don't
Yes,
know.
yes.
Okay.
The beauty of the application process is that the US gives options. So most people apply for the fall session, and you apply like 8 to 10 months before the day you're supposed to, or the month you're supposed to resume school. And the same thing usually happens for like spring. There are usually fewer admission slots in the spring, but I know people who have come into their universities during spring. So just subtract 8 months from all the things that I told you. So spring is around January. January minus 8 months. You know, you can figure that out. You people are smart.
So let's jump right into the requirements itself. What are the requirements for people who actually want to get into a fully funded PhD program?
Beautiful. So I'm going to talk about this from the point of view of the admissions officers or the school. So what does the school want? Like when they want to admit a student, what do they care about? They want a student who will be successful. They want a student who will perform good research and a student who will be a good alum of the school. And they try to estimate the potential of a student to succeed by asking the students to submit certain documents. So one of the first things that they need from you are your GRE scores. This is becoming optional because of COVID, but we have standardized tests, the GRE, to test your quantitative and verbal reasoning skills. We have the test of English as a foreign language, or the International English Language Tests. That's the IELTS or the TOEFL. These two exams, you write one of them, or recently we have the Duolingo English test, that's the DET. So either of these three exams are acceptable to prove that you can communicate in English language. So you have to write certain tests. So they look at your performance on the GRE. So your quantitative scores and your verbal scores, they are very important. What else are they looking for? They want to know that you actually have a passion for what you're studying. You know what you're going for. So they ask for your statement of purpose. So in the statement of purpose, you explain your motivations, you explain how your background has prepared you for grad school. You have the chance to explain other things in your application that may not look good. Perhaps you have a low CGPA. This is the chance for you to explain all those things. They also care about a professional summary of your career. So they ask for your resume, or if it's a CV, you have whichever one but I strongly recommend writing a resume, just one to 2 pages. So they require all these other documents. They look at these documents to form a holistic picture of how prepared they think a student is for grad school. Finally, they need other people to be able to speak about you, people who have worked with you in an academic or professional capacity. So we call this requirement the letter of recommendation. They usually ask for 2 if it's for masters, and if it's for PhD, they ask for minimum of 3. So these are the requirements that schools usually ask for.
You also missed the transcript. They need transcript like from their school. Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
That's actually a very important document. Thank you, Arose.
Mm. Yeah. So delving back into these requirements, like you said, GRE is becoming optional, right, in some schools, but it's still required in some other schools, right? So like it's really based on the school they're applying to know whether they're submitting GRE or not. But like, what's your advice generally, even before they start looking at schools? Should they write it?
Yes, if you are in the STEM field, I strongly recommend you write the GRE. So we need to get the differences. In some schools, GRE is required. In some schools, it is optional. In some schools, it is not wanted. So the schools that don't want it, they will write it explicitly on their website. If you send your GRE scores, we will not look at them. So those schools don't want to bother themselves with the GRE at all. So for schools that have the GRE as an optional requirement, it means that if you submit the score, they will take a look at it and employ it to evaluate your application. And some candidates are going to submit it. The way I talk about the GRE, people study from different parts of the world and different degrees have different components. The GRE is a standardized test and it's something that is a uniform exam that can be used to compare candidates apples to apples. So it doesn't matter whether you went to a private school or a public school, whether you studied in the UK or in Ghana or in China or in Russia or in Nigeria, it doesn't matter. Everybody writes the GRE and they can use that one metric to filter out candidates very easily. If you have a very high GRE score, it gives the admissions committee confidence in your abilities. So, and especially if your CGPA is not as high as you want it to be, taking time, 3-4 months to write the GRE and to do well in it actually gives your application a boost. So if you are studying something in the STEM field, I strongly recommend you write the GRE. You will still find schools that will say it's optional. For schools that the GRE is optional for, you need to make sure your application is really tight. Your statement of purpose, your resume, your letters of recommendation, all those other things need to be extremely tight without your GRE. Those things still need to be very sound when you have the GRE score, but the GRE score really helps you. The final thing I want to mention is that you should form a list of schools and look at how many of your schools need the GRE, the schools you think you have the highest chances of getting admitted into. If more of them need the GRE than the ones who don't need it, please go ahead and write the GRE. If most of them do not need it, then you can probably consider not writing it.
Okay. So the TOEFL, is a test of English as a foreign language. I know some countries, I think Nigeria, it's not required for us, but I know I still wrote it. But there was this thing of I think it's not required to get admission, but I think it's required for funding. Am I wrong?
This is a very interesting question. So let me go back by saying something. More and more schools are beginning to realize that Nigeria is an English-speaking country. And not just Nigeria, there are about 34 other African countries or so that are English-speaking countries. And it's very funny because this is 2022. And this is something they should have known since like 1914 or like 1960. So they are beginning to realize that many students don't need it. At least when I applied, the School of Engineering in Tufts University, they didn't require the TOEFL. So it's something that is optional. TOEFL, basically, with regards to funding, it is required if you are going to be a teaching assistant in some schools. So, as I said, some schools already have confidence in our language speaking skills. For those of us who are from Nigeria or any other English speaking country, they already have confidence in that and they don't require it for teaching assistantships. But some schools will still insist, especially for non-STEM programs that have significant teaching components. Because for some of us in the STEM fields, we just essentially do extra lessons for students and we grade their scripts. But for people in the non-STEM fields, they often teach an entire course in some semesters. So it's extremely important for those people to prove their command of the English language, and the schools may require it. But yeah, it depends on the school,
Yeah.
essentially.
So when getting transcripts from your school in your own country, are you required to do the WES or AES? Or you can just I know for some schools you required, but are there schools that do not require that? And like what is WES and AES for our audience?
Yes. So I love that question. And I'll backtrack to transcript evaluation. So we all know what a transcript is. It's a description of all the courses we've studied, or a summary of those courses and the grades that we have in those courses. And the interesting thing about transcripts is that different countries adopt different, would I say, systems or grading systems. Even in a country like Nigeria, we have some schools before, like the University of Ibadan, they had their CGPA over 7.0, but I think they've changed it now to 4.0. And we have those differences even in different countries. So what does a transcript evaluation do? The transcript evaluation will bring all these transcripts together and sort of convert your courses and grades to the US equivalent. So the most popular transcript evaluation agency is WES, World Evaluation Service. It costs approximately $208, and I think about $15 or $30 for each school you send it to. So it's usually not required. Most programs will not require an evaluation. So I remember Boston University, at least we're currently in 2022. As at 4 or 5 days ago, when I checked the website of Boston University for social work, that was actually last week, it was stated clearly on their website that all transcripts must be evaluated for international applicants. So only a few schools require that thing. But then I strongly recommend it if you have like a second class lower, because for whatever reason, when those grades are converted into the American units or standard, people typically get like 0.2 to 0.4 extra points in their CGPA, and it can help you meet the minimum requirement of like a 3.0 over 4. So if you have like a first class or a second class upper, you most probably don't need the evaluation. If you have like a 2.2, you should definitely get it because it will help you significantly. Thank you.
So come to statement of purpose. I don't think we'll go into details here. We've already talked about it. I have a video where I read my own statement of purpose out. Victor helps people with the process of writing their statement of purpose. Like I said, the details is below. My video is linked up here. So we'll skip that for now. Work sample. Is work sample needed in PhD applications?
To the best of my knowledge, no. But for people in like the social sciences and the arts and in the humanities, so they usually request for writing samples. And it's also interesting because their resumes or so their personal statements are usually longer. So many schools will require like 3 to 4 pages. Some will tell you 5 to 6 pages. And then they also want to see your writing sample of an academic work or report, something you've written in the past, one of your publications. So for people in the STEM fields, it may not be required. However, a few courses or a few schools love to interview their applicants. So before you are given the final admission, so a school like Boston University for their program in microbiology, they ask for an interview if you are able to get to that point. And it's in that interview you have the chance to sort of present your work sample in quotes. So you explain the things that you have done, the experiments you've carried out, what you have learned, and those kinds of things. For people in computer science, it also doesn't hurt for you to have a GitHub page. I'm sure those of you in computer science know what GitHub is. It's like a repository for your codes that you have written. You can include that link in your resume, and they may not ask for it, but it's good to make it available. You can also link to it in your statement of purpose and talk about some of the things you have done. So it's usually not required, but if you have some nice things you've done in the past, it doesn't hurt to include them.
Yeah. So what is how do people go about creating a list of schools for them to apply to?
Okay, beautiful. So this is where I would link to your video.
Yeah.
I watched the video yesterday, and you talked about Grad Trek, Princeton Review, Peterson's. I would also mention Google. There's something I also would love to mention. Okay, how not to go about your list of schools. I would say this, and what I'm saying is it's sort of controversial. Don't get your list of schools from Twitter. We have many people on Twitter who are doing an amazing work. I really appreciate what they are doing. They are very popular names, and they inspire people to apply for PhDs, and they often give out list of schools, and they talk about schools with application fee waivers and all these things. I would say that you should use those lists as supplemental schools. They should be schools that you would consider, but you should not necessarily use those schools as is. So you need to do your research. Does this school, there's usually 3 questions. There are 3 questions I usually tell my clients to ask. Number 1, does this school have what I want? Number 2, what are my chances of getting in? Will they admit me? How competitive is the school? The third question is, if I am admitted, is this school rich enough to fund me? We also need to know that funding varies in different schools at different times. So sometimes for some years, schools may not have a big enough budget to admit more than 2 or 3 PhD candidates. And this often happens. So, but if you're applying to like a very big school, you don't really have that concern because most of the time for different departments, they often have research expenditure in dollars, millions of dollars, really. So you need to ask those 3 questions. And there's Peterson's is a really good website. I go there, I type the name of my course. In fact, that's my most preferred website for college search. It gives you so many schools. Then you now begin to filter. If you don't want to write the GRE, so you click the schools and first of all, you can filter by location. If you're interested in a specific state, you can filter by the type of degree, whether it's master's or doctoral you want. You can also filter by the size of the school. And for those of you who are interested in professional courses where they hardly fund the programs fully, you can also get information filter by tuition, the tuition amount. So Peterson's is a really good resource. Going on Google and searching, it can be you would get millions of results. It can be very overwhelming. But try different search terms like, you know, PhD programs in social work in Alabama, PhD programs in chemical engineering in Florida. So when you put extra terms into it, you're able to narrow it down as well. You can also say no GRE, no TOEFL, December 1 deadlines. Just get very creative, and it's something that can really help. But do your extensive research on each school to confirm their requirements before applying.
Yeah, thank you, Victor. And like you said, there's a link to show you step by step of how to go through all of those websites. How is funding ensured? How do you ensure that you get funding when you're getting your PhD admissions in?
I'll start from, and I know Rariso is tired of Victor starting from the beginning. So funding, I know she has several videos on how to get funding, and you'll see them in the description box of the video. Funding is the way for you, as it sounds, to fund your education. There are often 3 sources. You have fellowships, or what we call in other countries scholarships. These are financial assistance, or these are monies given to you without any obligations. So you can get a $50,000 scholarship or fellowship. I got the School of Engineering fellowship in my first year, and with that I had the opportunity to jump from lab to lab to explore what my interests are. And then we have assistantships. That's the second category of funding. And under assistantships, we still have 3 types. We have like graduate research assistantships, graduate teaching assistantships, and the ordinary graduate assistantships. So I will start with the ordinary graduate assistantship. That's less common. So these are people who work with like the departmental chair or in the department's office. They are responsible for clerical duties. They help with filing of things and just basic administrative stuff. So most GRE students, I would say 99% of GRE students are not funded that way. The rest of us are funded as teaching assistants or research assistants. So a teaching assistant is an employee of the university, of the department specifically. A research assistant is an employee of the professor. So research assistants are paid from the research grants of their professors, and they work on the grants or the research that their professors or their PIs are doing. The teaching assistants are employed by the department, and they work for the department to help teach some courses, do like extra lessons. We call them office hours, where people can pop in and ask questions for the assignments. They also help the professors teaching the classes to grade. And with these assistantships, the beautiful thing is they come with 2 benefits, usually 3 benefits. One is tuition waiver. You don't get to pay tuition. The second benefit is usually stipends. So they give you money that you can use to survive. The third benefit is usually health insurance. So not every school covers your full health insurance, but most schools do that. So how do you ensure you get funding? First of all, apply to schools that have enough money. Apply to PhDs. There's more funding for PhD programs. And finally, many applications, take note of this, they have a spot on the application where they would ask you, would you like to be considered for research assistantships or assistantships, you have to click yes. If you don't click yes, you've automatically told them you're not interested. So,
Yeah.
and then some other schools have a separate application as well. Like there's like a form, you would fill the form and write a mini statement of purpose if they want, and you will now email that form or you upload that form into your application. So please take note of those extra things that you need to do to get funding.
Okay. And like in 1 minute, can you just tell us like a rough estimate of the cost for the entire application process?
If you're applying to 7 schools, are approximately $1,000. So if you're writing the GRE, these are estimates. GRE costs to $20, TOEFL costs to $20. If you're applying to 7 schools, 4 schools come for free. The report to 4 schools come for free, but for extra score reports to 3 schools, that's about approximately $30. It's actually 27. So we are looking at $680 for the cost of the GRE, the TOEFL, and 6 additional score reports. If you are doing WES, that's around $208. If you are doing if you're applying to 7 schools at an average of $70 per school, that's about $490. So if you add 680 plus 490, you get it roughly 1,000, like 200. I just want to quickly confirm that. Oh, 1,170, yes, roughly 1,200. If you are doing West with that, that will be about $1,400. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Victor. If you have more questions, ask in the comments, send an email. Like I said, I'm leaving his contact, and yeah, we'll be happy to help you as much as we can. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you for watching till the
Yeah.
end.
And let me add something, if you don't mind. This does not include, if you are interested in this, it doesn't include the cost of consultancy. So this is just like the base cost. So please be aware of that. For consultancy, you can visit my my website, vkconsult.com. It will be linked in the description, and we can have a free 15-minute consultation with you, and we can discuss the best ways to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.
Thank you.